Hello and welcome to Face on CDTV. Now, there are some people who appear before the Appointments Committee of Parliament and it's just a walk in the park. They spend maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes. There are others who spend generations there. My guest holds the record as having served the longest time or sat the longest period before the Appointments Committee of Parliament, except maybe Martin Amidu or Chemate Jaku, who may have beaten him to the record, but he really held his own and was grilled as though he was tilapia from Kwetey South. My guest, I'll be introducing shortly. My name is Umaru Sandamado. You're welcome. We'll be talking about the economy, agriculture, and politics in the NDC. Please stay with us. My guest served as Minister for Agriculture. He served as Minister for Transport. He served as Deputy Minister for Finance. Before then, he served as Propaganda Secretary. He has also been a Member of Parliament. His name is Fifi, not the fancy version, but the ever version for a Friday born, Kofi. Fifi Fiavi Kwetey, former Member of Parliament, Kwetey South, is my guest on Face to Face. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Happy to be with City. It's been a long time.
Yeah, you've been missing in action.
I know.
It's like you just disappeared after.
After
the 4 more came, you decided to go do 4 more. Yeah, I was telling my viewers that you have the longest. You hold the record as the person who sat before the appointment committee the longest. That was 2009. It was like 7 hours or something like that.
That's true. It's quite a long one.
How was it like? I'm sure it was many years ago.
It was hell. At the same time, it was challenging and nice as well.
You had a whole banter with Osechin and Saboso.
Yeah, with Honorable Derry. A lot of them good friends now. Yes.
Yeah. But I think at the time they took you on more because of things you may have said about the economy. And this was because the portfolio you were occupying in the NDC at the time, having been the propaganda secretary, there were things you said which they thought you were propagating falsehood. Given another opportunity, would you take up a job as a propaganda secretary of a party, even though that position has been scrapped or changed in a way now by the NDC?
Actually, in truth, they did not really take me on because what I said was not true. They took me on more because what I said was painfully true and took them out of power. So it was more about trying to get back to you because you really are seen to be the reason why we lost power. So I'm not saying every single thing that said was perfectly accurate, but there were not things we said that you would call a lie. You could say maybe certain things could have been checked better. Basically, that's what.
So it was vendetta against you?
Yeah, it was more like this is our time, payback time.
But
we've gotten you, and we also show you where power lies.
Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has been invited by many people now to speak on the economy because when they were in opposition, he was often giving lectures on the CD and the economy generally. He's not speaking now. You have had the benefit of being in opposition, being in government, and gone back to opposition. Do you agree that when you're in opposition, a lot of things are shrouded, but you use that shroudedness and make statements that sound emphatic, but which are in fact and indeed inaccurate?
There's a little difference between being in error and deliberately lying. They are not the same thing. If you do not have all the truth, you can say certain things which constitute error. But you can actually decide to lie. And I think a lot of what Bawumia said in opposition were things that he was in a position to know, but he deliberately lied about it.
How about in your case, the things that you admit now that you may not have completely spoken?
Let me give you the typical case, for example, that the MPP thought they had against me. They had against me the fact that as propaganda secretary, I had a newspaper that published a story.
You own the paper?
I was then managing editor of the paper.
Was it the Express?
No, it was the Lens.
The Lens, okay.
The Crystal Clear Lens. And the Crystal Clear Lens killed a news report, which news report actually was on Ghana Web. And that news report was to the effect that the gold reserves of Ghana had been taken out. Now, that particular news item was proven later to be inaccurate. So it was just a newspaper report that we were making a noise about. It's nothing to do with me as an individual.
Even because as an editor,
as a propaganda secretary of the party, I never once used those reports in any of the press conferences I did. If I thought those reports were credible, I would have used them in press conferences. I would have used them in rallies. I never used them. So effectively, this was a desperation to basically hang on to a newspaper report. It's just like, for example, getting CNN making an error, or CTFM making an error, and I'm sure as a news person, you know, there are times that your sources are wrong, and therefore you have to. So basically, that's what it was. It's different from deliberately going out there to deceive a country. Where, for example, you said that, you know what, we do not need to borrow. You know it's a lie. Where you tell a country in the year 2012, at the time when the fundamentals were strong, because I was in Deputy Minister of Finance, and we had some of the strongest fundamentals of this country within the period 2009-2012. Some of the most brilliant fundamentals, never equaled. MPP in 6 years has not even come close to touching it. And then you had an individual go out there and said, when you do propaganda with the economy, the foreign exchange will expose you. He said this in 2012. He was definitely, blatantly lying. And later on down the road, when his lies caught up with him, he tried to deceive the country. That particular statement, he made it in 2014. You see, when I said that statement, it was in 2014, at the time the fundamentals were bad. But he was lying again, because that statement was made in 2012 when the fundamentals were strong. We had what you call one of the highest growth in the history of our country, over 14%. We had CD depreciation that was as low as 3%. We had, in fact, we brought treasury bills rate down to as low as 9% by the end of 2011. And you see all these fundamentals, and you claim that the fundamentals were weak. He was definitely lying. So we're talking about a difference between being in error, which is okay, and being lies. A deliberate liar.
Except that you've just admitted that you were the chief executive of that newspaper at the time.
I say I was the managing editor.
Yeah, so the buck stopped with you in terms of editorial content.
I do not disagree.
And so if your newspaper makes a publication, it will be fair to infer, even if you may not have authored the story, you may not have sanctioned it, it will be fair to infer that you were behind the story. And if you're saying to me today that you never used that publication because you didn't find it factual, it means you're an editor who superintended over a newspaper that published falsehood. That's a problem.
No, but I never in any way at that, what's the name, at the vetting denied the fact that the newspaper was in error. I admitted that. And that's honorable. If Baumia and Nana Akufo-Addo could have a minimum of that decency, this country will not be in the mess in which we are.
What is
the capacity to admit when you're wrong?
What is the problem with Ghana's economy currently? The fundamentals. What are the problems?
I think right from the onset, the foundations were established on deception. And when you build something on deception, it's simply a matter of time. It's going to collapse. So basically, they came into office riding on lies. You came into office, for example, pretending that somehow you were able to reduce taxation, and at the same time, you increase expenditure. Now, anybody who has basic elementary understanding of economics knows right from the word go, you are deceiving people. Because if you want to increase expenditure, it will mean you have to raise money in order to be able to expend. You do not claim that somehow you are able to reduce taxation and at the same time increase expenditure and still be able to keep the economy.
Because you had production on the back burner, you were going to go into production. That substitutes the taxation.
No, it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't?
Production doesn't just happen on a daily basis.
Even if you fix all the necessary basics.
What it means is that before the production will kick in, you will still have to expend. And to expend, we will have to raise revenue to be able to do that expenditure.
You can't project.
So right from the beginning, you absolutely lie to the country. Especially when you made it look as if the whole of the problem was simply a question of mismanagement. When you knew that it was not.
Was it not?
Because the same individual who was heading the economy into 2016 was the same individual, John Mahama, who was in charge of the economy between 2009 to 2012. which economy has some of the most remarkable achievements in the history of our country, still unmatched by the NPP.
But the two eras
So
are
obviously,
different.
no, but that tells you that clearly if there were difficulties between 2013 and 16, you need to appreciate that, listen, it's just like life. Life goes through what you call ebbs and flows. It's just like a football team. You can run into moments where you are in difficulty. And if you watch carefully, even between 2013 and 2016, watch that economy carefully. Anybody who observed Ghana's economy knew that even after 2016, we had already laid a foundation that was going to ensure very accelerated growth between 2017
or rather,
and 18.
it is a case that between 2013 to 2016, the economy was in the hands of an incompetent driver.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That
So in
analysis,
2009 to 2013,
Yeah.
things looked good because he was not a driver, he was a mate. Now he's made a driver and things go down the hill. And that is worth pointing out, isn't it?
No, at all. The economic management team is under the vice president.
Yes, but with direction from the president.
Yeah, but I mean, the president clearly takes the ultimate credit and also takes the blame if things go bad.
Yes.
You cannot take that away from the person who is in charge of the day-to-day
Yes.
running of the economy.
Yes.
And that was the vice president.
Yes.
And I'm saying that even between the period 2013 to 2016, a lot of great stuff was done.
Yeah,
Some of which we can go into. For the first time
for days.
You know, for the first time in the history of this country, you had somebody who was in charge, who was able to resolve a problem that this country had not been able to resolve for decades.
A problem we're told was self-inflicted.
No, a problem that actually was what you call the aggregation of several previous government inability to do what they ought to have done. If previous government had all made a kind of investment to increase what you call the generation of energy in our country, we would not have had a situation where we had such a massive shortfall that we had.
But you see, in 2007, we had this problem. It was Kufuor who was in charge.
Mm-hmm.
You booted him out. You came through from 2009. You knew what the problem of 2007 was.
Mm-hmm.
You had, and this man you're referring to as having been in charge of the economy at the time, he could have come up with fixing problems that would prevent us from hitting 2014. But he sat and watched for 2014 to repeat 2007. And why would you be celebrating him in 2014 when he could have stopped that from happening?
Let me explain to you.
Yes.
Let me explain why it is not as simple as that.
Okay.
If you watch carefully, what happened was this, that in 2009, when we took over power, especially between 2009 and 2012, the economy saw a very massive growth because of what you call onshore of oil. What happens is that it accelerates what you call the demand for energy. We reached a moment where virtually on a year-to-year basis, you needed to add almost 10% to your generation in order to keep up with the demand. So we were no more in the pre-oil economy, where the demand for energy was that low. So you needed, therefore, to be able to now do additional investment to keep up with the now increased levels of demand. So it was not an issue of nothing was done by way of energy generation in the first 4 years of the NEC. No.
But that's what culminated in 2014.
No, that's what I'm saying, that it is actually the fact that so much more investment that should have been done earlier was not done.
But earlier by who?
By the previous government. All the way, I can tell you that
but
all
you
the
are
way.
the previous government. That's what you have to take note of.
No, we had 8 years before we came into office.
Yes.
Now, I can tell you, for instance, that between 1993 to 2000, the amount of investment that was done to increase the level of energy generation in the country was far more than the period 2001 to 2008.
Yeah, but
2001 to 2008 actually saw virtually sleeping on the job as far as energy was concerned until doomsday hit around 2007.
Even with the advent of Power Authority.
No, forgotten that we never really came in until we actually came and had to even borrow additional money.
Yeah, but it was an infrastructure that was left behind for you.
But really in terms of even additional generation, we really doesn't contribute.
Well, it's complementing Kosombo perfectly.
Very little.
Yeah.
Very little. For example, what we did.
So you can't say that nothing was done.
What we did, for example, in terms of what's the name? The project we did, the gas infrastructure that
Atuabo.
That actually is what you call an economic transformational infrastructure.
Because you had the resource at the time.
It's also about vision.
Kufuor didn't have that.
No, it's also about vision. We're talking about government today that has gotten, if we're talking about just the resources available, over 500 billion that had come into the hands of this government. But you can actually count on your fingertips the completed project that have been done in that period. So it's not just about resources.
There are a lot of projects that are not physical that they have put in place.
Like what?
All the policies they have introduced.
Like which ones?
Oh, the free senior high school is the one that they always tout. And I'm sure you will not underestimate the importance of that policy.
If you put together all the so-called policies that they've put together, in terms of resources that have been used for those policies, they do not amount to more than 40 billion. 40 billion in comparison to over 530 billion is virtually like a drop in the mighty ocean. So what it tells you is that they could actually have done far, far, far more. If you gave that 530 billion to the previous government, because what we had was actually far, far smaller than that. But look at the amount of project and infrastructure that we put into this country. And you have this ocean of resources, and you cannot even point to any significant infrastructure that has been done in the history of our country. It tells you that you are not just incompetent, you have no business actually being
even though you have a history of starting a 200 units or 200 school block project, which you didn't even do a percentage of before you left. You promised to deliver that. You never did. You remember that?
If you set on a project to do about 200 projects, you complete, let's say, about 40 of them. You take an additional almost 60 to a certain level. That's almost half of it that you have done something
Except that you promised to do it in 4 years. So if you failed, you've lied, correct?
No, you've not.
You have lied.
You've not.
If you said you do so, you didn't do that,
no,
you
you've
lied.
not. What you've
you
done,
just gave me that theory a short while ago.
No. There's a difference between inability to complete something and...
For lack of foresight.
No. For lack of resources.
Or lack of competence.
Lack of resources. Because I'm telling you that if, for example...
If you didn't have resources, you don't... I mean, who plans to build without buying building materials?
No, it doesn't work like that. You can, for example, plan to build. You could come into a situation where, as a result of, let's say, resources that you needed to devote to solving a problem which you had not created like doom, so you need to sink a lot of money into that, into solving it. A problem that you have not created, but you need to resolve it. So you have to divert resources to taking care of that situation, which is a critical situation for the country. That naturally takes away resources away from other things. But still, in the midst of all that, you still are able to build to a level which you can hand over to the succeeding government.
You still haven't convinced me that Doomsor was not created by you.
How could Doomsor have been created by us?
Because you said you are blaming previous governments for failing to put the necessary infrastructure to prevent Doomsor from happening.
Yes, that's wrong.
And I'm saying that you are the previous government.
Why?
So you're blaming yourselves then.
No. I'm just saying that between 1992 all the way to the year 2008.
Yes, Rawlings did what he had to do.
No, I mentioned Rawlings did contribute. The real problem was that between the period 2001 to 2008, too little was done until 2007 when Doomsor happened.
Good. And I'm saying
Do you get it? So what it means is that if, for example, President Kufuor had gone at the pace Rawlings had, he would have added much more.
Good. And I'm
then,
saying,
of course, when Prof. Mills also came, what he added, there would have been.
And I'm saying that when you knew this fact and you came in 2009, you should have focused on that to prevent 2014 from happening. That's called foresight.
No, that's not the way it works.
How does it work?
What I'm saying is this. When you come into office, you have what you call a portfolio of things that you need to get done. For example, at the time we came, we needed to ensure that the economy, which itself was quite very challenging when we came into office. We're talking about an economy that had seen, and for some people forget, but this is not the first time we have had a 15% deficit in the history of our country. We came into office at the time President Kufuor's government had a plan to have a 4% deficit, budget deficit. By the close of 2008, it was 15% deficit. Subsequently revised. So now if you look into the books, you see something in the region of about 6% or so. But in reality, in 2009, at the time we were presenting the budget, it was a 15% deficit, which is massive. It means that you actually miss your target by as much as 11%. You were planning to have 4%, and you end up with 15%. That was huge. We're talking about a city that was accelerating in terms of depreciation at the time we came into office. In fact, the first 5 months of the year saw a depreciation of about 18%. What we are seeing today we are talking about 15% in the first 3 months. It was quite similar because we had almost we had about 18% depreciation in the first 5 months of the year 2009. We had inflation, therefore, that really had gone up to almost all the way to about 21%. So we had quite a number of challenges. We had what you call huge, arrears that we needed to take care of. TOR and Ghana Commercial Bank were virtually in danger of collapsing because they had left huge debt at TOR, and so many other things. So we needed to make sure that we take care of all those things before starting our own agenda.
This is Face to Face on City TV. My guest is Fifi Kwetey. He's former Deputy Minister for Finance. His portfolio is really long, so I'll just leave it for that there for now because we're discussing the economy. When we come back, I'll ask him. The Finance Minister, Ken Oforiatta, is due to speak to Ghana. The President is due to speak to Ghana. They've said they will not go to IMF. They've said that they have gone to Peduasi and they're back. They didn't go to Royal Senchi. They went to Peduasi. They're back with goodies that they're going to share to Ghanaians. I'll ask him what he makes of that. And if he were still in the driver's seat, what would he do differently? Please stay with us.
City TV is live. On DSTV, go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and Star Times box. City TV. It's your world.
You're welcome back to Face on City TV. My name is Umaru Sandaman. My guest is the former Deputy Minister of Finance, Fifi Kwetey. We're discussing the economy and other issues. If you were still at the Ministry of Finance with Kwabena Dufo as your boss, who was your boss, right? What would you advise him to do in this period?
The first thing is to take responsibility. I think the biggest problem with this current group is the fact that they think actually they can run the economy on spin. And that actually is what is fascinating, because this is the same group that actually used to claim that we were running the economy on propaganda. But if there is any group that actually thinks that you can run an economy on propaganda and spin, it is our friends in power today. So first, take responsibility and stop the lies. Stop the spin. Take responsibility. Stop lying to the people of Ghana that the problem that we have is because of COVID. When you know that even before COVID, this economy has started tanking, stop lying.
But COVID is partly to blame.
Yeah, but you know the truth. Check what's happening in Burkina Faso, in Nigeria, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Togo, in Benin, in Rwanda. And you notice that all of them have recovered. The deficit has not reached 15%. Their currency is not collapsing like we're having today. So it tells you that we are in a situation that is purely our own doing. So you take responsibility. You stop lying to the people. You assume that, listen, I have made the situation the way it is, therefore I'm going to fix it. If you recall, when he came into office, when we came into office in 2009, Prof. Mills at the time said, listen, there were problems in the economy. Nana Akufo-Addo, then opposition leader, said, stop complaining and fix it. That is the greatest advice for him today. Stop running away. Stop giving excuses. Stop trying to blame everything in the world, from COVID to Putin to anything in the world, and fix the problem, because you have caused the mess. You have presided over the mess. Fix it.
He's not running away. He's in Peduasi, or he went to Peduasi. He's come back with goodies to fix it.
Yeah, but then stop lying about COVID. Stop lying about Ukraine and Russia. Stop lying about other things. Admit that you are the cause of the problem and fix the problem. That's the first thing I would advise. The second thing I would say, eat the humble pie. Eat the humble pie. After President Kufuor was able to show that you can be man enough to admit when you go wrong. The problem we are having is that Nana Akufo-Addo and Bawumia are not men enough to admit that they lied, They are not men enough to admit that they have messed up the economy. They are not men enough to admit that they have caused the problem. And therefore, they have their minions under them who are all over the place trying still to deceive the people. So it's almost like you are sinking and you keep digging. Stop digging, because you're only going to sink further. So that is important. Now, some of these latest admissions relating to the fact that they have to do something about the expenditure, I think it's welcome. That's the way it is. Because you know what? The world out there knows. If you remember the first 4 years of the NPP, what did they not do? For example, they lied about deficits. When they realize the deficit is high, then they will tell you that, no, this one is below the line. You know, the banking sector is below the line. That's not part of the deficit. ESLA is below the line. I mean, the petroleum subsidy is below the line. Then they went to get fund to get money. That's below the line, simply because they were trying so hard to deceive the country about the real deficit. But you cannot deceive the country forever, because the world out there knows what the real situation is. And those deficits that they were hiding was translating into what you call the debt. And the debt keep accumulating. And today the debt has become so strangulating that they simply do not have any more room to breathe. You have a situation where if you take your taxes today, your annual taxes today, your public sector wage, and your debt servicing alone wipe out your whole tax. And these are the people who actually claim that we said the economy was down to the bones and there was no meat left. Today, it's not just that the meat is gone, the bone itself is disappearing. That really is what we are doing.
You left some of these debts behind for them to come and be paying. I mean, it's not like overnight Akufo-Addo's debts that he created or loans that he went for are the ones that he's paying back loans that date back decades. And so you should also be taking some of the hits, or you don't want to admit to that.
For every debt that we left behind, we actually were leaving what you call a corresponding massive investment. That actually is the difference. Whereas we put quite a lot of our borrowing into what you call serious economic infrastructure, which you can see. Social and economic infrastructure. They basically put a lot of their debt into what you call consumption. They
borrow to eat.
Basically so. So if you have that situation, then what it means that you are actually destroying not just the present, but you're also imperiling the capacity of the country to have the ability to be able to develop.
But are we not seeing growth? Are we not seeing the investment they have put in these monies into? I've mentioned there are 15 policies that they have put in place. These policies, they say they're going to review because of the expenditure in that regard. We don't know by what percentage they'll be cutting it, but we have been told that it's actually responsible for a lot of the expenditure that we are seeing. Should that not be commended instead? They are making our children go to school. They are building agriculture for us.
Let me try to explain it this way. Let's take, for example, they very much talk about free SHS. They very much talk about free SHS. Listen, it's noble to try to provide a means by which as many of your children can have access to secondary school as possible. It's noble. And I think generally even the constitution of our country says, as far as the resources will allow, make it free for everyone who is in a position to go to school. So there's no debate about that. I don't think there's any political party in this country that has a problem that if the resources are available, you have to make that education free. Now, so when you come into office, you look at your resources, and on the back of those resources, then you try to make an effort. Now, if you start a project without even thinking through, it's like you want to build and you've not taken time to even know the resources that are available to you. That is the kind of problem into which you run. So, for example, you came into office, you didn't have enough educational infrastructure. You don't have enough teachers. You don't have enough what you call all the things that...
Because you fail to leave that behind for them.
No.
Governments are a succession.
No, there's no government that actually can say that I can complete every development need within a period of 4
If you had left 200 classrooms for them or school blocks for them, free SHS would have rolled on easily. They wouldn't have been doing the double track that we're seeing.
But even those that we left behind, many of them are still rotting today.
Because they say you place them in forests.
That's not true.
They say you place them in places where community members can access them.
The community-based secondary school in my constituency, which I was privileged to be able to help get for my people, it still remains incomplete today.
Where is it located?
It's located in Ablao.
in the heart of Aflao.
Yeah, Aflao is not, luckily Aflao hasn't really got what you call a forest or
It's
anything
small.
of that nature. So it's located there. It's still not complete. So that excuse about the schools were placed in places that it's a complete.
So you've listed a number of.
So I'm just saying that you want to do projects based on the resources you have.
You
You
want
want to plan it in a manner in which you can deliver it properly, as opposed to starting the journey and then later on you see that you have actually messed the situation. Because really, that's what we have.
So you would have told Ken Oforiatta that stop telling the lies, eat the humble pie. Would you also tell Ken Oforiatta to go to IMF despite the opposition by the current party in power?
Let me preface that by saying that their problem with the IMF is their own doing. You see, when you are in opposition and you deliberately lie about what is not the case, later, when you have to do the same thing, your own lies now start haunting you. Going to IMF has never been an issue of disgrace. There's no issue of disgrace about going to the IMF. But for them to actually create this whole specter of it takes a disgraceful government to go to the IMF. Meanwhile, your government, when you're in power, the previous time you were in IMF, so many previous governments have gone to the IMF. So to create the impression that once you go to the IMF means you are in disgrace is absolutely a complete lie. But that is the kind of lie they told. I remember as a member of the Finance Committee of Parliament and also one of the key MPs, I took on even the current Finance Minister. He actually was typically parroting some of these pretty, should I call it, ignorant statement that is made, which I can appreciate if those who don't understand the economy make. Like statement, oh, you have to go to IMF because you need money, you need a bailout. So that IMF doesn't give you $1 or $1 for you to pay your teachers or to pay your health workers or for you to build your roads or for you to build hospitals. IMF doesn't give you any of that. IMF support comes to as what you call balance of payment support that goes to the central bank, and none of that money comes to you in terms of the finance ministry to be able to use to support your budget.
It just frees you up.
What IMF does for you is to give the markets, the investors, the credit rating agencies, it tells them that, you know what, they are ready to live within their means. That's all. The IMF is able to signal to all these very important people that, okay, after all the period of irresponsibility, because really, all the problem we are in is just down to irresponsibility. You are earning 100 cities, yet you are living on, you are spending 300 cities. Somebody has to pay the additional 200. You knew that you have 100. But if you decide to live on 300, you clearly are putting yourself either into a debt situation, or you are depleting all your savings and having to live larger than you are.
But is IMF the only solution out of the mess? You went to Senchi. You said you're going to do homegrown solutions.
The real solution, because IMF actually is not going to tell you what you do not know. IMF is not telling you anything that you do not know. IMF is simply telling you that you are earning 100 cities. So please spend 100 cities. If you have to even go beyond 100 cities, maybe maximum, maybe what, 110 cities. Because then it becomes a small what you call financing that you can take care of without literally destroying your whole economy. So you actually are being irresponsible. IMF is simply telling you that show responsibility. You do not expect, for example, that the taxpayer in Holland or the taxpayer in England would continue using their taxes to be giving you what you call loans and grants, while you continue being responsible in your own country. That's simple.
The central bank.
So in terms of the solution lies with us as a people. We simply have to stop playing to the gallery. We have to start living according to our resources and stop doing things way beyond our capacity.
The central bank has come out with some proposals that it has brought in, or some new policies that it's introduced, and including the increase in the prime rate. You reckon that's one of the solutions, especially in taming the depreciation of the cedi?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good first step, but I would actually say that it's very much even late, because you didn't need a rocket scientist to know that after the year 2020, when you had a deficit of about 15%, you clearly were going to start having serious inflationary pressure. You don't need a rocket scientist to tell you that. It's simply common sense. Now, so as a central bank, if you were also not party to this whole grand deception of the people, keeping what you call artificial policy rate and artificial interest rate, simply because you want the government in place to continue looking good, when you know deep down that the situation is not good. So it means that you are also complicit. So the Bank of Ghana governor is complicit in the whole mess. Together with Bawumia and Nana Akufo-Addo, they are all complicit. What they actually were trying to do was somehow to hope that somehow the wind will blow over. But you have caused a problem. The wind is not blowing over. So what is manifesting today is simply what you call an accumulation of the mess that they themselves created.
Why are we not blaming the technocrats and blaming the politicians? It's the Bank of Ghana that runs the monetary aspect of our economy. Why should we be blaming Bawumia for inflation issues, for depreciation issues?
Yeah, but the thing is that the problem of the currency is coming because of the fiscal insanity, the fiscal indiscipline. That is causing the problem. So the Bank of Ghana is in charge of the currency, that's true. But if you continue doing things with your fiscal that is going to bring inflation, you basically are creating difficulties for them. If you recall, we are talking about in 2016, we went through the whole of 2016 with what you call zero Bank of Ghana financing. We didn't get one dime from the central bank in the whole of 2016, an election year. We still were able to keep the economy in order. You are talking about a group that, as of 2020, got access to a minimum of 20 billion cedis from Bank of Ghana. That's massive. Massive. And in spite of that, you still have the economy in the situation in which it is today. So I'm saying that yes, Bank of Ghana has taken a measure, and to a certain extent, that will help what you call reduce the capital flight. Because really, between you and I, if you have access to, let's say you have access to some 10,000 cedis today, and you decided to buy treasury bills, for the whole year, you are getting not more than 13% on your 10,000 cedis. That's the interest rate. Inflation, as we speak, is about 16%. So what it means is that right from the word go, you are making what you call minus 3% return on your money. Why would I keep my money into a CD denominated asset when I know that even before the investment, I'm already losing? So I would prefer to keep my money in dollars or in pounds because I know at least I'm going to be above inflation. So what it is they are doing now is simply, trying very hard to catch up with something they should have done several months ago. You were Minister for Agriculture. They have a policy in the agriculture sector, at least two. There's one village, one dam. There's planting for food and jobs. They even have rearing for food and jobs and all of that. Agric has to come to the rescue. You do agree to that. Are their policies in line? Are they on the right path for this rescue mission that Agric is going to do for us so we can see this production dream that we have? The problem is that they are experts in what you call sloganeering. That's what they do the best. And it really is not the first time. Remember even the last time when they came, it was the same thing. Zero tolerance for corruption. Meanwhile, they were the most corrupt regime ever. They had all kinds of slogans that they had back in time. Now it's all the 1D, 1F, one village, one dam. All of it basically are just nothing but slogans. If you go really onto the ground, you see very little. If you want to see, for example, agriculture, this country largely, in terms of importation, that's huge rice importation. Huge rice importation. Despite Fifi and the rest. At the time we were in office, all the way to about 2016, the maximum, actually the total amount of money we're spending on importation of rice was maximum $500 million. You check that figure today, you should be pushing not less than $1.5 billion for importation of rice. It tells you that whatever claims they are making about agriculture, the reality is the contrary. You take, for example, cocoa production. At the time we were living in office, it was almost getting to 1 million metric tons, about 960,000 metric tons. That's almost 1 million. Go check the figures today. It's come down. You check the food prices today, you can see clearly that they are doing a lot of things, verbally, blowing trumpet about all the great things they are doing in agriculture. But the reality, you see it in terms of what you call the prices of food in the market.
They will say to you that they're not going to come to you for advice because under your watch, agriculture grew the lowest, 3%. That was horrible. You should be the last person to be commenting.
There again is what you call their lack of capacity to tell the truth. Because actually, the last time we had the most disastrous performance we had in agriculture was actually a negative growth in agriculture, and that happened the last time they were in power, in 2007.
After them?
We've had agriculture that has grown far less than 3% since.
Yeah, but under your watch.
If agriculture grew about 3%, it clearly was not the highest, but you need to view it vis-a-vis the total growth of the economy. So, if you saw agriculture grew at 3%, but within that same period, you saw rice production in the country that was able to hold down the importation of rice. You saw foundation that was being laid for almost 1 million metric tons of production to be done by 2016, which was a year after I left the office. It tells you that solid things were being done. That actually was going to be reaped not long after.
If you were still the Minister for Transport, what would you do about the increases in lorry fares, even though your ministry directly does not control petroleum price?
What really can you do?
You put back the Ayalolo buses on the road and provide the necessary infrastructure for the trains to move.
Because really, the transport fares are in relation to what is happening with the general economy. If inflation is what it is, if the depreciation of currency is what it is, if fuel prices are what they are, what are you going to do? You just have to make sure you prevail on the general government to work at reducing the things that are causing the prices to go up. So let inflation come down, manage the currency better for it to come down. Work to ensure, I'm hearing today that they have removed some of the taxes in the petroleum, which again should have been done much earlier. They waited until matters have hit the head, and now suddenly they are scrambling to try and see whether they can salvage the situation. I'm saying that it's too little, too late.
This is Face to Face on City TV. My guest, Fifi Kwetey, when we come back, we've heard somewhere that he wants to run for the General Secretary position of the party. What is lacking in the NDC? And since he left Parliament, what has he been doing? Growing rice, catching snails? What exactly has he been up to? Please stay with us.
City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and Star Times box. City TV, it's your world.
You're welcome back to Face on City TV. My guest is Fifi Kwetey. Your constituency, Ketu South, harbors or hosts a border to the eastern part of the world. And indeed, it's the busiest border we have in Ghana. It's a commercial hub. It's been closed down for 2 years now.
Yeah.
What is the situation there like? And what is your advice to government as someone who used to represent the people there?
It's really a very sad situation. I don't think we've had this prolonged period of border closure since 1982. That's the last time. I remember that very well because much younger I was, and I was actually schooling across the border. So we had a period of 2 years that the borders were closed. Then it was because of the President Rawlings had just come, the coups were happening. So I think there was a need to secure the borders because we was afraid the dissident coming from Togo. It was very difficult even at the time as a young person, where you literally had to go every day across the border to school, even though the borders were closed. So you can imagine the paralysis that happened to the economy of Ketu South for this period of 2 years. And I would say that it's sad because what current measures are now going to be taken could really have been taken. They could really have been taken all this while. Because don't forget, even though the borders were supposed to be officially closed, it still were not preventing people who needed to reach Ghana from whether they are coming from Nigeria or from Benin or from Togo from coming through. They still were, because they could always find out an approved route to come through.
So it's an effectively,
effectively what you were doing was literally punishing what you call the business of the area. Because unfortunately, that business needed to be done it's done normally through the main border, to be able to go buy goods and come and sell, or bring them to Accra, take them to Kumasi. So basically that became the real difficulty. And for a period of 2 years, that really was uncalled for. A lot of pain, a lot of agony.
Even though it was preventing a virus from spreading in the population.
That's just one of the what you call cock and bull stories that this government was using.
Really?
The real thing had nothing to do with, because let me tell you, if you check, for example, the COVID numbers in Togo, in Benin, or even in Ivory Coast, or Burkina Faso, our three immediate, let's call it Togo and Ivory Coast are most immediate, and then Burkina Faso. The COVID numbers in those places was far lower than what we had in Ghana. We actually should be, if there's anybody, people should actually be blocking us, because we were carrying the COVID that we're going to actually be sending to other people. Because
they were not checking, so they can't know if they had it or not. We were checking. We had a very extensive system of checking.
Are you downplaying the whole capacity of sovereign countries to be able to take care of their people?
I'm just saying that perhaps
that cannot be true.
You see, that cannot be true. It seems like you're speaking from different parts of your mouth. Yeah. Forgive me to use that line, because when Akufo-Addo's government said, and the Electoral Commission for that matter, said they were going to do voter cards. You said, no, you're going to kill people, you're going to bring COVID. They said they were going to do Ghana card. You said, not here. NDC, you actually were the one who was leading them to fight.
To do what?
To oppose the registration for Ghana card, the registration for voters card, because you said it's going to be a super spreader for COVID. And yet you are saying that the borders should be open.
But rather, I'm also being consistent.
No.
Maybe you are then now not seeing my
consistency. How are you being consistent?
I'm being consistent because what I'm telling you is that you had a problem in Ghana.
Yes.
So yours is to resolve your problem in Ghana.
Yes.
As opposed to creating the false impression that your problem was coming from Togo, because that really was not where your problem is coming from.
Yeah, but I'm saying that.
You were actually doing a lot of political programs, political rallies, and those political rallies, you were having masses that were mourning and doing so, at the same time pretending that your problem is with Togo. Togo that had what you call less than what you call, in terms of the COVID numbers, infinitesimal in comparison to what you had in Ghana.
Yeah, but my point is that if you were opposed to gatherings like the registration for Ghana card, registration for voter card, and yet you want the border opened.
Because but the airports were open.
Yeah, but they are restricted.
You can do exactly the same thing.
How do you do that?
You had an official border.
Yes.
And that official border, people come to that border. So you know the numbers that are coming.
You know the numbers that go through that border, you do that.
But it's the same as the airports.
The population that crosses Aflao border
no.
is not the same as the population that comes. You and I know that Aflao border
let's say it this way.
Yes.
The people of Aflao who have to do what you call daily movement in and out, that you can discount it. That's just people who are from your own and going across. I'm talking about the people we're afraid of are people who are coming from other countries, entering our country, and their numbers is not in comparison to our. In fact, the real activity of borders is we in Ghana who move across to Togo for business. People coming all the way from Ashanti region, from different parts of Ghana, crossing the border for business and back. So we actually cause the traffic. The traffic really is not coming from outside; it's coming from us moving and coming.
So I'm saying
if we are having a problem, we solve our problem.
So that's stop pretending. That's why we close the borders. We just close them with our internal problem.
If that is it, then you have to resolve your own problem and still allow visitors to come, because you can check those visitors who are coming.
But we are doing that. So we've closed the borders. We are vaccinating people. We are asking people to wear masks. Down here, we are controlling
exactly
ourselves.
What you did with the port. So do the same with the borders. Because the numbers that were coming across
the infrastructure will be too expensive.
No, that's just an excuse. That's just an excuse.
Putting up all those testing
That's just
kits.
An excuse.
You sure?
Yeah, it was just an excuse.
So they should open up the borders.
I can tell you, I don't want to sound. I can tell you that if those borders were places that represent what you call places where MPP had political stronghold, they would not have kept those borders closed for that long.
So it's closed because of politics. How does someone going to Ashigama to buy that bread that they sell, the nice one they sell in Togo, how does that affect
the point I'm trying to make is
politics
simple.
Down here?
If the livelihood of the people of those places was the livelihood of places where the power or the support base of the MPP came in, they cried out, their voices would have been long heard.
I get you. You want to run for MPP, NDC General Secretary? Is it true?
Let's say it this way, that we're waiting for, the party at the moment is going through, shall I call it, final processes of preparing through reorganization, membership drive, then eventually an announcement will be made relating to party, shall I call it, election from the branches all the way to the national. So we are waiting for that project to be over. I would say that I definitely intend to help my party, as I did in the past. I intend definitely to do so. But we'll make a formal announcement when this process is ready. But I've indicated in several places that if it is that the current General Secretary is not running again, I definitely will be announcing my candidature when the time is due.
So Fifi Kwetey will run for NDC General Secretary if General Mosquito is no more running?
Yes.
Why? You're afraid of him? You don't want to challenge him?
No, it's not about fear.
Because Koko and Addo challenged him and now he's gone on Twitter doing things. You're afraid?
Let's say this way, that even to become what you call the person in charge of the communication of the NDC back then, I really didn't jump into it. When a good job is being done, mine is to, if our people do not know, even though I've been extremely quiet, I actually work extremely very close with the current communication officer of the NDC, known as Sami Jeffe. One of the people who work extremely close with him, but just in the background. So as long as a good job is being done, some of us, our joy is to be able to support a good job. So, but if he who has held the position and done great does not want to go, then there will be the need for somebody to step in to be able to help the party to try to keep the same level.
So you're not saying that General Mosquito is a horrible General Secretary?
Not at all.
He's done a great job.
Absolutely.
So end of service, if he says, I'm done, thank you, then you can step in.
Absolutely.
But for so long as he wants to be there, you do not think you should challenge him because you think everything he's doing is in order.
No, because I believe that we can still be in the background and help him. Some of us are
so it's not like he's incompetent.
Some of us, not at all. I mean, this is not an indictment on him at all.
Okay.
It's basically about he's done what he's done, take that baton and try to at least maintain the level.
Your party has the word democratic in it. You should be able to contest him. Are you worried that if you contest him, you'll be annihilated like somebody did?
Why contest him if he's doing a good job?
Okay.
My view is that if you were doing a disastrous job, then we have to make sure we compete and take him out.
But why do you tie your political fate to someone's choice, decisions? So that if Mosquito decides to run again, you are there waiting. Let's say this
way, that I don't look at this as a personal project at all.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, as I mentioned to you, it's the same thing I would have done if the person who was then in charge of NDC's communication back then was a super guy who was competent.
You took over from Hudu Yaya, right?
No, I didn't take over. Hudu Yaya was the previous general secretary.
Okay. No, I'm talking about.
I took over from somebody, another comrade, Farouk Brahma.
Okay. Brahma, yeah. If he returns as general secretary, will you run for another position in the party, or you just hold on?
No, I will not run for any position.
You don't want any other position?
No.
Just general secretary? Yeah. Go for chairman, eh? Why are you even coming back to politics? You voluntarily left parliament.
I never left politics.
You left parliament. We thought that you're like, oh, Charlie, I'm done with politics. And yet, yeah, you
but that's a different phase.
I
had the blessed opportunity to serve my people for 8 years. As far as I'm concerned, that was good enough.
Will you go back to parliament?
No.
Never.
Chapter
is closed.
I've been given the privilege of serving my people, so that's enough.
We used to do something called setting the record straight. Is it that there's no record to be set straight now? Because you haven't done it in a long time.
Yeah, but then you must appreciate that I did because I was then in charge of the communication of the party, and then also when I was in the finance ministry, a lot of what had to be done had to do with the economy. So again, I did in that respect. But of course, at the moment you have a very excellent young man who is in charge of the communication. So all the records
you like him, he's doing a good job.
All the records.
Sam James is doing a good job.
Absolutely. He's a boy after my own heart.
Is there anybody in the executive that you don't want to be retained if you had your way?
Oh, but that's not for me to say. I leave that for the party to make that decision.
Okay. You want John Muhammad to be your flag bearer again?
Absolutely.
If he says running mate, will you do it?
If who?
If he says you should be his running mate, will you
It's
do
not even possible, so there's no need to even
Why
think
is it
about
not possible?
that.
You are from south, he's from north.
But that even the reason why it's not even possible.
Because two World Banks. So
Not
you
just
need someone
that.
from a different...
Invariably, from 1992, we've never had a situation where two people on a card, both of them come from non-Akan region.
Okay.
So it's always going to be an Akan to balance ticket anyhow. So that's even not a possibility.
Fifi, Fiavi, Kwetey, Middak Bano.
Akbar, Nyawe Dom.
Yo. That's how we end today's edition of Face to Face. Fifi Kwetey, Minister Agric, Minister Transport, former Deputy Finance, a lot of other things, former MP Keto South. My name is Umaru Sandamadu. This has been Face to Face on CDTV. Please keep watching. It's your world.